Up next on today's episode of the Sonic Alchemy Podcast.
I'm living in Orlando. My Honda Prelude that I had bought off a friend of mine caught on fire while I was on a date. I was just having
That's a good
what
omen.
I felt like was the worst luck possible, and didn't have a car. I was having to go around and get to work on a bicycle. It was a really dark point where I felt like I was just a big giant loser.
And so I remember going through that and trying to just like piece my life together, because I really was in a place where I was just trying to I realized that who I had become was not the version of me that I wanted to be long term.
Maybe the drug-fueled recklessness that I had for a 3 or 4 year period there, where I was going to clubs and taking ecstasy or any number of dumb stuff that I would do at that time. They sort of caught up to me and the party was over.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show.
What's up? What's up? Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, man. So we were talking a little off camera, but for anyone who might be tuning in from my neck of the woods, which is Tennessee, or certainly the East Coast and lots of the South, we've been dealing with a ice storm out here, which is interesting because being a California kid, I've not dealt with many of those. So
No.
we're one of the lucky ones where, you know, we've had power and heat and all that. So we've been well taken care of, but we've been trapped indoors for a few days. So it's nice to see someone that's, you know, not my reflection or, you know,
Yes.
I love my wife, but, you know, it's nice to see some other people for a minute.
It starts to feel
Even
like
if it's virtually.
the end of The Shining when you're running through the maze and it's frozen, you know.
Actually, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, you start to get a little stir crazy, you know.
Well, it's funny that you bring up The Shining because I made my wife had never seen, and probably a lot of people haven't seen it because I think it was, I mean, it was like one of those made for TV series in the late 90s, Stephen King's Storm of the Century. And to me, like, it had been forever since I'd seen it, and it's kind of a low budget, you know, made like back then. TV was not like it is now.
No.
So the acting is not that great, although there are some actors who have had pretty great careers. But yeah, that came out in 99, but it's all about this little town off the coast of Maine, and they have the storm of the century comes through, and it's all this snow and ice, and people start getting killed, and there's all this like supernatural stuff going on. Typical Stephen King sort of deal. Yeah. A little more overt than something like The Shining, but it gives a really similar kind of vibe, you know? It's like they're all isolated from the mainland and all the people, you know, there's only like a couple hundred people live on this island. So, of course, I thought, hey, what a great thing to watch when we're having this crazy ice storm and we're all trapped trying to see if we're going to have power and heat is let's watch Storm of the Century and really get in the vibe.
Fully immersed.
It was fun. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. I have not watched that in probably since it was out, I would say. There was a couple of, in the Stephen King world, I mean, I was probably still am, a pretty big fan of, and read a lot of his books when I was younger. So actually, I forgot about that. I met him in Ohio. He was doing book signing.
Oh,
he was doing a book signing. It was really cool. In Columbus, when I was at school there, he was doing a book signing. I'm not going to remember. It might have been The Outsider, which ended up being a show on HBO a few years ago, probably pre-pandemic, I think it was. But yeah, I think he was doing a signing for that book. Really cool guy, as you've seen, if you've seen any interviews with him.
Is this pre or post accident for him?
Pre, I want to say it's probably 94, 95. I'm again somewhere around that time because I remember it being in Columbus when I was there, so it had to have been around those few years in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
Anyway, been a big fan. but his TV, the TV adaptations of the books to me weren't ever really as strong as some of the film ones. And The
Yeah.
Shining one, just a funny aside. It always came out that he was not a fan of Kubrick's sort of take on that, and ended up doing a TV version of The Shining that went a bit more into the sort of hotel itself, the overlook,
Mm,
and a bit more of what the book kind of explored more,
yeah.
where Kubrick really just took it as a psychological horror of this person that's going insane, and
Yeah.
a bit
And there's
more in that
very
space.
little touch on, like, they don't really ever explain The Shining itself
No,
very
that's where
much,
the
like,
book kind of goes a little
or
bit
if
more.
it's real, or if it's all
Mm.
just kind of in the head of the main character.
Oh, Tommy, the
Ja-
boy.
yeah.
Or are you talking about
Yeah.
Jack? Yeah, Jack's
Well, Jack
character.
Nicholson, yeah.
Yeah.
I consider him like the main character of the movie.
Yeah.
Whether that's the case in the book, I don't know. But
Yeah, it was just interesting that he was not a big fan of how it was adapted, but ended up being really great, you know.
it's an amazing movie,
Yeah.
I thought.
It's hard for
Yeah.
me to argue because there've been so many adaptations of his stuff that I've both loved and also not really appreciated. But that one
A
for
lot of
me, I
it's hit or
really did
miss.
enjoy. Yeah.
A lot of
I
it
did
is hit or
enjoy it.
miss. The Shining is great. Man, I was really disappointed because when I saw that they were doing Gunslinger,
Mm-hmm.
I was really excited about that because, on a side personal note, my uncle, who was a big part of like me getting into music, he was also really into comics, and he was an avid reader, and he read all kinds of stuff. But I remember when I was a kid, him reading the Dark Tower series,
Oh, yeah. That was really good.
and I wanted to check it out, and he was like, it's a little too adult for you right now. So eventually it was always in the back of my head that I wanted to check it out. And so I've read like 3 books into it now, something like that. And my wife actually got me a whole bunch more for Christmas. So I'm reading The Stand right now. I'm going through a whole like Stephen King thing, but
Nice.
my version of The Stand is like the unedited, uncut version. It's like an encyclopedia. So I'll be in that for a while.
Yeah, that's a big book to knock out.
Yeah. I'm like
big
probably 150, 200 pages in, and I'm like that far.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like 5 books in one.
Yeah, it's a big book.
But yeah, the Gunslinger is the first book of the Dark Tower series, and so I saw they had Idris Elba, and Matthew McConaughey maybe.
Yeah,
and
Matthew
I thought,
McConaughey.
this could be so cool, and then it got the worst reviews I've ever seen. So I want to watch it still, but I feel like I'm going to be so disappointed that I haven't watched it. And so I'm like, well, I guess I always have the book, but
who was it? Is it George
bummer.
Miller that did all the Mad Max movies? I can't think of his name now. I'm probably screwing that up.
Maybe.
I felt like in his hands that could have turned out good, because I just feel like the Gunslinger kind of felt a bit like a Mad Max kind of world to me. And I wanted to kind of see it sort of in the hands of someone like that who could really do it justice. And that's no offense to it. It fell flat for me for sure.
Well,
as did several of them have, but there's some that I like. Brian De Palma doing Carrie, that was incredible.
Carrie's great,
strong, really good.
Yeah,
and so the ones that are really good, Misery, again, love that movie. Thought that was really strong, and not one that you tend to think of when you think of, Shawshank.
Well, that's a good point. Shawshank. I had my wife
Green
watch
Mile.
that. We watched both of those recently, like within the last 2 months.
Stand By Me.
I think she had seen Green Mile at some point, I think, but she had never seen Shawshank. She loved it. It's so good going back and watching it.
So there were ones in
Tim
there
Robbins,
in the catalog. Oh, he's great.
Young.
So good. Young Tim Robbins. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because like he was so good in that era, I feel like. And then we've been watching that show Silo,
yeah.
which, man, I wish that show was better. I thought the first season was pretty good, but the second season I just couldn't barely finish it. It just felt so bad. But he's like the main bad guy in that movie or in that show. And I hadn't seen him in anything in forever, and so that was kind of cool to see him back in action and playing a darker character,
Jacob's Ladder. That's a big one for me, going way back for Tim Robbins. That was a really great film. If you haven't seen that in a long time.
I haven't seen it since high school, I think.
Yeah, it was really good. That was another one that was really good. Not a Stephen King, but just a good film.
Yeah.
It
almost might as well be, though. It's a similar sort of
kind of a vibe in there.
Yeah. Crazy story.
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't mean to take us down this crazy Stephen King thing. But that's been my world for the last couple of days. So again, to anyone out here in this area or impacted by the storms, hope you guys are doing all right. And
absolutely.
Hope everyone gets power back soon and is able to get up and down the road safely and take care of your families and all that.
Yeah, if one thing I know about Nashville and Tennessee in general, and just the people there, they're a resilient bunch, going through those tornadoes that happened a few years back, the storms, of course, and those kind of things. But it's a true sense of community. You get to see a lot of people just getting out and helping their neighbor. And I think for me, that's always that's the human spirit, that's what everyone should do. Get out there and help people, especially if you're in a space like that and impacted in that way. It sucks because you see so many natural disasters and things that, wipe out communities and hurt communities. But in the aftermath, you get to see people that are out there trying to help each other. And to me, that's just a very optimistic way of seeing, like, okay, there's still humanity out there. It can feel dark at times or at least closed in, but you got to know when you look for it, you can find it. And I think in moments like this, you see the human spirit kind of rise up, no matter political or any of the other noise. It's just, hey, let's get out there and help everybody,
Yeah, I mean, so it was cool seeing on social media, like my wife was showing me quite a few things that were popping up of like different groups and whatnot, specifically trying to help people. Mm-hmm. It's like single moms who have to stay with their kids and don't have a way to go get groceries, or people who need a way to work or whatever, people who have the means to be able to help, finding a way to help. So like, hey, I've got a truck, I've got 4-wheel drive, what do you need from the store? I'll go get it and deliver it to you, or, those kind of things.
Yeah.
And so all of that was really cool to see. I like to imagine things like that happen in California. I don't really remember ever seeing anything quite like that. But then again, we didn't have conditions like that, where I grew up there.
Right.
But I don't know. It was probably similar in, Southern California with the fires and stuff last year, the year before, people just finding ways to try to help out, It is inspirational. Sure. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, speaking of inspiration, that was a good jumping off point. So I was thinking about this the other day, and we kind of talked a little bit very early in the podcast. We sort of talked about music that we kind of grew up with, or music that we listened to when we were younger. But I wanted to take a little bit of a spin on this, and not to get super hippy dippy, but if you were to close your eyes for a minute and really just think about your life, your key moments, impactful moments in your life, can you recall, like, if you were to score a playlist for these impactful moments in your life, what would those songs be? There's songs to me, and they're very specific songs that have evoked a certain thing, a time and place for me that was very impactful to my life. Yeah. And it kind of gotten me to a place here now. And I thought that'd be kind of fun to maybe explore some of those songs and maybe the sort of roadmap of when you discovered that song and maybe what was going on at the time. Why did it hit you so hard? Why was it so impactful for you in that moment in time?
Yeah.
So I thought I'd put that very lofty, heady question at your feet and think we had similar upbringings in a way, coming through the church, things like that as well. You came into music a bit later, but I imagine thinking about things like a first date, getting
Mm.
hyped up for something, an argument, like very big things that were impactful for you in your life. I'd love to know, like, what are some songs that kind of scored that for you?
Wow. Well, it's a big question. I almost wish you would have prepped me for that one, because I probably would have thought of a lot more
Yeah,
things, a lot
yeah.
more songs. I mean, a
True, true,
bunch
true.
already come to mind. I
Yeah.
mean, are you looking for any particular order? Are we going like
No,
start in early life and move forward, or?
no. I just think like whatever really hits you, like there are moments that I think are important to talk about because they inform you who you are today. And I think music for me has always been a vital part of those things.
Yeah.
If there's a very painful moment in my life, I can promise you a painful moment or a joyous moment or a
Yeah.
reflective moment. I can assure you that there's music that's been scoring that in my
Yeah.
mind, or something that I'll go and listen to because I need to listen to it, or music that I will hear that lets me know in some very interesting way we're going to be okay. Right.
Yeah, totally. Well, I mean, I'll rattle off a few and you tell me which one you want to break down.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's do it.
I mean, of course, like early in my life, you're influenced and you're hearing most of the music that is just happens to be around you in context. So for me, that's, hymns and Christian music
Mm,
and that sort of thing. But pretty early, I don't know, probably around 12, I hear, because I feel like that's where maybe your own tastes start to develop. You
mhm,
start to branch off. Somewhere around there is when I hear Derek and the Dominoes' Layla,
mm,
and that tore my head off the first time. Actually, I didn't hear it as Derek and the Dominoes. I was back then I didn't have cable TV,
mhm.
and so I mean I don't even really know if antennas and that sort of thing are still a thing, like public broadcast. I guess it probably
Right.
is.
Right. Right. Right.
But I had whatever channels just showed up in my local area that you got for free at that age. And so I remember going to PBS and they had, it wasn't the whole concert film, but it was the Crossroads Festival,
Yeah.
Clapton's Crossroads.
Yeah.
And so I heard a whole bunch of stuff on there that just floored me. But Layla was
Mhm,
the, like, you'd hear like a song from each artist that was at the
mhm,
festival, kind of a thing.
mhm,
And so I heard Layla. That was mind blowing. I heard Robert Cray for the first time. I heard ZZ Top for the first time on that. I heard John Mayer for the first time on that. I heard
Wow.
probably who else did I hear on there? Jimmy Vaughn, I think I heard on
Mm,
there for the first time. I heard a bunch of really great artists. Robert Randolph, who's a pedal steel player
mhm,
who's
mhm.
phenomenal. So I heard all kinds of really cool music on there for the first time, and it just
Yeah.
Layla took the cake. So that's like one of the early ones that I remember just thinking like guitar had to be the coolest thing that has ever existed. And I was already
Yes.
playing guitar at that point because I got a guitar when I was 10. But
Yeah.
that was like, I had one concept of guitar, which was that thing that you strum in church and,
Mhm.
you're kind of playing with people. And then when I saw that, I was like, that is like a portal that you can open up and go to a different dimension.
Mm,
So that sticks out. When I think about, um, I don't know, before I got together with my wife, the relationship that I was in before that was a really it was a tough period of my life when that ended, and it was I felt like things. It's like sometimes you gotta hurt to heal.
Mm,
It's like surgery is going to cause additional pain, perhaps, but it's sometimes necessary in the overall healing process.
mm-hmm.
And so I remember going through that and trying to just like piece my life together, because I really was in a place where I was just trying to. I realized that who I had become was like not the version of me that I wanted to be long term,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a more authentic way of being that I had been suppressing because I thought I needed to be something else, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And through that period of time, Fell on Black Days was like
Mm,
the most hurts so good kind of song because
mm,
I always loved it before,
mm,
but it was a period where it just felt like Chris and Soundgarden really got it. Like
mm,
I knew what it was like to feel that low. And so
mhm.
that was a really productive thing for me. I remember listening to it on repeat and just um, exercising some demons to that.
Mhm.
I think about like the early stages of getting together with my wife when we were dating,
Mm,
and it would be New Light, John Mayer.
mhm.
Um, that was like our fourth date was a John Mayer concert,
Oh,
and it was
wow.
around the time where that came out. And yeah, she was more familiar with the newer stuff than the older stuff. I had been a fan for a long time.
Mhm.
And so that one really just stuck out as like um, I mean, I could pick some others from that night, but that was like a really great song that we sort of connected over. And still when it comes on, it feels light and fun and new in a way.
Yeah.
I'm sure I could think of a bunch of others too. Those are some like right off the top. I mean, I think about I don't know, like I could pick any number of Avenged Sevenfold songs from like my
Mhm.
teenage years. I think about something like I don't know, anything off of City of Evil was like I listened to that record so much that I basically just wore it out. Um, I'd never heard anything like that at the time. That was just my and still is one of my favorite records to listen to.
Yeah.
Um,
What do you think it is about that record now? Do you find that these songs or these albums are portals in a way? Like they are a wormhole. You put it on and you're immediately transported back to when you first heard it or to maybe the energy around that time in your life when you first heard it or when you were first with your wife dating? What do you feel like that they're portals or do you hear it now in a different way? Like reading Mark Twain. You read Mark Twain, you were
mm,
younger, it's
yeah,
fun and adventurous. When you read it as an adult, it's social political commentary and things that are there about the state of the world, right? Through the eyes of
yeah.
whatever character. So I'm just curious, does it change for you as you get older or go back and listen to those things?
You know, I think the sad thing is that it has changed for the
Yeah.
most part with most of those things.
Yeah.
Um, it's kind of like uh, what would I say? Uh, most of those things that I liked so much, I listened to the point where I've extracted every little bit of magic that I can out of the listening experience over time.
Mm.
And so for a while, when you find something that you love and you're listening to it a lot, you'll eventually, like as you're listening, you'll hear something new in it, catch a harmony you didn't
Mm.
hear, a layer, uh, a synth, drum fill, a tempo change, or like just something that maybe you didn't pick up in the listens
Mhm.
before, and your listening gets deeper and deeper. And so I think after a while, uh, it's like you kind of bleed it dry a little bit. At least I
Sure.
do.
Sure.
So now when I go back and listen to it, if I leave it sit there for long enough, there there are circumstances where it feels that way. New Light's a
Mm.
good example where I don't listen to that song very often outside of the context of being with my wife. And so like if we're out on on a drive or something and that song comes on and we're together, it's going to feel fun
Right.
and
Fun. Right.
lighthearted, and we kind of reconnect with that
Yeah.
feeling. Um, but for most of those things, uh, they do represent something different to me now,
Mm.
and I do see them differently than I did then. Because there's so much novelty when it's new.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it doesn't mean that they aren't still, I guess, somewhat of a portal, because they do timestamp parts of your life.
Mhm.
Um, and there are some things that it's like, uh, that you share with friends or people that you care about or family. And then there's like the music that you only really ever listen to by yourself. I assume most people have that, where it's like you maybe didn't know anyone who was into that one particular thing that you're into, so it's
Mhm.
just yours.
Mhm.
So like I've talked about it on here before, but Zayo was one of those bands for me,
Mm.
and I don't follow them closely anymore. And some of their more recent stuff had kind of lost me. But then I happened this week after we had our last conversation about uh, being uninspired by newer music.
Mm.
Right now, I found a whole bunch of music that was great. So maybe that that conversation stemmed that.
Yeah.
But I happened to see that Zayo had put out a new record last year, I think,
Mhm.
and I was listening to it in the gym and just thinking like, this is so awesome, and this reminds me a lot of being 13 or whatever,
Yeah.
when I was
Yeah.
super into that band.
Right. Right.
um and how cool it is that they've been doing it all these years later.
Yeah. There's a lot, and I'm sure I've been thinking about like writing like a memoir or some kind of r- reflection back of how music has impacted me, which is kind of what spawned the conversation today. I'm just thinking about if I was going to put down how music has sort of scored my life from teenager to now and all the pivotal things that have happened. And there's so many as I can sit here and think as you were talking, there's 4 or 5 more that would pop up, right? And so I'm
Yeah.
sure this is an ongoing thing that would come up, but it's like I can call out a few that I feel were really impactful to me. Um, and it always seems to be sort of the counter to the thing as I've been thinking more about it, the counter it music was a way for me to have a one-on-one relationship with something when maybe what I was exuding outward in my body or appearance or social groups or things that were going on weren't necessarily who I felt to be my true self. Here's
Mm.
a good example. I'm on a marching band trip from the panhandle of Florida to Georgia. We're going to do a marching band competition, which is what you did if you were in marching band. You had competitions you would go to and all this stuff, right? And we stopped in Tallahassee to get food at this mall, and I had a Walkman, and I was just craving wanting to hear something new, and I ended up going into the music store rather than eating, and um, buying Appetite for Destruction
Mm.
because I saw the album cover and thought I had heard nothing, not a single song, and just bought it just because I thought the album cover was kind of twisted looking with the skulls on the cross and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And for the entire 2 or 3 days that we were doing this whole thing and the competition and all that, I was completely lost. Like, I couldn't tell you what our marching routine was, what songs we did, nothing. I couldn't even tell you about the group of people that stayed with me in the room. They were all, we were all friends and all that stuff from the band, but I will tell you that every single moment of time that I had, I was locked in on that record and had it in the headphones. I was thinking about that one in particular because I've been, again, my workout lately has been consistent of me going and playing drums for a couple hours and just trying to learn stuff and get loose and feel more in the pocket and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, I want to take down Appetite from top to bottom and really kind of get it, and try and play all the whole record. And doing that and listening to those songs, it kind of brought me back. And I've heard, again, I mean, it's Appetite for Destruction. It's a massive record, just like Layla is a massive song. And I've heard him on every single song on radio for hundreds of times since that first time. But for whatever reason, lately, it opened up and I got in the portal and went back to when I was sitting on the bus listening to that. And it was so special. It made me feel alive.
Yeah.
In a moment where I was like, I think hiding in plain sight. I don't think I was fully who I wanted to be. And you're a kid, you're in high school, right? You don't know who you are yet. And all the emotions of dating and all that kind of stuff, were going on at that moment. But it somehow, Axl and the band and sort of the rawness of that gave me some kind of inner confidence at that moment. Because I was like, oh, this is it. This is everything. And it kind of helped me a little bit in that moment in time for me. I remember a breakup, a pretty significant one for me when I was in, again, high school. I had a few girlfriends here and there, but this was the one that was more the one that breaks your heart, that they always say, right?
Right.
And I went through my strange period of watching Purple Rain, the movie, a lot. Let's just say it was a lot. But what got me in that one was,
you were the
again,
inspiration for Stranger Things.
Yes, maybe.
I'm assuming you saw the end where they do the whole Purple Rain.
business. Purple Rain. Yeah. But that record also, and again, and I still go back and I love every single track on that record and have studied that record a lot. But that's one that really got me through a pretty self-loathing point in my life where it was really tough. And the movie, because he struggles in the movie with his dad and the abusiveness that happens in his life and all that stuff, he kind of puts his heart out in the film and says, these are things, where they're loosely based on him. I pretty much believe it was pretty close to what he probably dealt with when he was younger, figuring himself out, who he wanted to be as an artist, fighting to get seen and discovered for the music that he was doing. And then sort of that dark piece about his family and those sort of things anyway. So it just connected with me in the music and sort of the emotion of the music that he played on that record. Really stuck with me. There's another one that came to mind when you talked about my wife. We went to Coachella together one year, and I introduced her to a band that I was very into. This is, again, and we talked about this the last podcast, that 2003 to 2008 era for me was heavily indie influence. So I was into a lot of what I would find to be under the left of the dial, I guess is the best way to put it, a little bit from regular radio. And there was a band called Band of Horses that I'm a huge fan of still. And they had a song that we kind of, for whatever reason, was just a moment in time, a beautiful night where they're listening to this band for the first time. They play this song. It was just a really heartfelt moment for Lisa and I long before we were married, but we were still together. We had moved to California from Orlando. And for whatever reason, that was just a moment where time kind of stood still for us. And it felt like it's a very special moment. You were holding hands and just being out in this festival. And it's a beautiful night in California. And that just kind of hit us both. And it becomes, she tells me later, that's our song. Every time we hear it, you know,
Yeah.
no one's going to love you more than I do. And I was like, oh, that's, you know, the lyrics, the rest of the song is a little more twisted, but the message of the song is still there. And
well, people hear and take away what it is that they need. It's funny how that is. There are a lot of times people will feel like their song is a song that if you were to do a lyrical analysis, you might question the choice, but what they're getting from it is something else entirely.
Yeah, not if you. This is going to be a funny one. It will date me a little bit, but I'll tell you this just since we're talking about it. Prom in high school, my senior year, I'm going to say the prom song that they chose was a song from Rod Stewart called "Tonight's the Night." Now, innocent enough. It's prom. It's a night for love and magic and all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
That song 100% is about getting down. Like, yeah, 100%. So much so that there's a lyric in it that says, "Spread your wings and let me come inside." Like, you could take that however you feel.
Yeah.
Metaphoric, analogous, whatever you want to say. It's pretty clear what Rod's talking about.
The wings of Jesus, you know?
Sure.
Let him inside your heart.
Yeah. And somehow or another, whomever my lovely people were in my high school that were on that prom committee felt like that was the best song for prom. And I was like,
of course.
I just got such a kick out of that. I'm like, you're encouraging teenage kids to go hook up. There's going to be babies made from this night in that song.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Okay, cool.
And I'm sure there were.
No, I'm sure there were.
Had to have been.
So there's a lot. Queensryche, we talked about a ton. Operation Mindcrime was a record that both, of course, my close friend that I've talked about, Greg, who passed away, we worshiped that record when it came out, and just all the videos that would come off of Headbangers Ball. There's a lot of songs, I think, around that time that just take me back to sitting in his house and watching MTV because I didn't have it in my house. So, you know, whatever you want to call it, sleepover, whatever, just hanging out there at his house and watching it late night. And just a lot of those hair band songs kind of popped up around that time. A really good friend of mine was playing Shout at the Devil. He had the record in his, do you know the car, the Yugo? Do you remember that car? It was like one of the first 3-cylinder cars that came out from, I want to say, Yugoslavia. I think that's why it was called the Yugo.
Okay.
And it's like this tiny, if you remember, you've seen the smart car, you know, how tiny those are.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? A bunch of people out here in the Bay drive them. But anyway, it was sort of like the first iteration of that. And he owned one of these. And it was, sorry for anyone who had one, it was a piece of garbage, like one of the worst cars ever. And he had this, I remember very, very clearly, we're in the McDonald's drive-thru. We're going to order something. I mean, this is high school time. And we're listening to the tape of Shout at the Devil because we both love Motley Crue. It was a great, great record. And his tape deck kept giving him fits. It would keep eating tapes, and we'd have to take the tape out and do the whole thing with the pencil. And so much so that he would have a pencil in his car to wind the tape back because it would start spooling it off. And it just so happened he's trying to place the order for us at the drive-thru, and you just hear it's like he just starts eating the whole thing while he's literally on the title track. And he got so angry that he picked his whole foot up and slammed it through the entire console of this Yugo.
Yeah.
It's like a Fred Flintstone mobile now. I mean, it literally goes almost all the way through the bottom of the thing. The entire thing is destroyed. He's got his foot stuck in there, and he's still placing the order for McDonald's. I'll never forget that moment. It was so funny. But again, thinking about that record, that's a memory that and a time portal for me. If I go back and hear that record, I immediately go to him. Like, just we're crying, laughing at sort
Yeah.
of the destruction of this, not caring one little bit about what he did. In fact, a couple years later, he joins the military. And before he goes off to basic training, he buys himself a Ford Ranger, and he takes that Yugo and drives it out into the middle of the woods, just slamming into trees and everything. And then when it finally dies, he just leaves it and throws the
Just
keys in
left?
it and just left it.
Oh man,
There's an
crazy.
abandoned car out there that somewhere, I'm sure, that's been there
Sure,
for
the swamp is overtaking it by now.
30 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, those are just a handful, but I mean, there's so many that come up for me at different points in my life that are so impactful in that way. I just was curious about that and
Yeah.
wanted to
Well, I
kind of
mean,
explore it with you.
a couple more come to mind too, and it might it part of inspired by what you just shared. But when does a Rush of Blood to the Head come out? Like 2001?
Yeah, it's gonna without looking it up.
I
Memory serves.
think.
It's going to be in that era of the early aughts. Yeah, the 2000 to 2003, somewhere in there, I think.
Yeah, so I think it's 2001, which makes me 11. And this is square.
Holy
You know, you're
crap.
talking about tapes. Makes me think about, you know, my era wasn't as much tapes, although we still had some of those. That was mostly like my mom's music was on cassettes.
Cassettes, yeah.
But you know, CDs are coming in full swing.
Yeah.
And so this must make sense, because when does the iPod come out? Like the first iPod?
That's
iPods were
embarrassing, but
out by that point. Anyway, at this point,
I'm looking that up.
I remember my family, and like some of my cousins, we all showed up, and I can't remember what the situation was, but we're all staying at my grandma's house.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, you know, there's like too many kids and not enough beds. So a bunch of us are sleeping out in sleeping bags in the living room. So, and then for whatever reason, I saw that my cousin had an iPod that her dad had got her, and it was loaded with just some random music on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I had never seen one. So I'm like, hey, can I check this out? So it's like the middle of the night. I'm not sleeping. I'm laying there in a sleeping bag, surrounded by a whole bunch of other people, but I'm in my own little world in the headphones. It's my first experience with an iPod, and I'm just going through listening to whatever music's on here. I'm like,
Right.
Like, this is, I mean, if you're born past, you know, iPhone coming out, you have no idea what this.
Yeah, this is a
feeling is like.
magical thing. That's like,
But it really was
just crazy. Yeah,
it really was amazing.
It was.
And I'm going, wow, there's so much music on here.
Yeah.
And I remember finding Clocks by Coldplay. That was the only song from Coldplay that was on there. And I must have listened to it. I don't even know if I slept that night. I just listened to it over and over again. And a lot of people would laugh at that, because that song is much maligned, I feel like, in the world of music snobs. But it is a really magical song and holds a special place for me. And especially being like 11, 12 years old, I'm getting like just sucked into this whole other world of sounds that I've never heard before. And it was like such a beautiful song to me. So that song stuck with me for a long time. And then, you know, you were talking about your friend in the Yugo. It made me think of that period of time where like you and your friends all start getting licenses and vehicles, and you start getting your freedom where you can like, I assume this is still the same for kids, but it's like, for me and my friends, it was, you get your license and then all you do is just drive around with your friends in the car. Like, you don't have anywhere to go. You just don't stop driving. So you just drive around town. You go get a bite to eat at the drive-through. You go to each other's houses, you know, watch a movie, whatever. And so I remember during that era, there was quite a few songs and bands that were like really important. And it was mostly the stuff that me and my friends were listening to anyway at that point, which was like a lot of metalcore. Was really big in the like mid 2000s. But I remember like the two that stick out to me the most. I remember getting picked up at church one time by my buddy Michael, and I think he was in his brother's truck. I think that truck was his brother's. It was like a little 2-door Chevy sort of situation.
Yeah.
And he got the at that point the new Killswitch Engage record, which was what is the name of that one? It's the record that has My Curse on it, which is like by far their biggest song that they've ever put out. And that song is still with me to this day. Like anytime I go into, I mean, it's in drop C, but anytime I put my guitar in drop D, I have to fight the urge not to play that riff. So like that record, Daylight Dies, I think is the name of it. The record, excuse me. And then also, you know, that was a band that I knew already, but a band that I hadn't ever listened to also popped up at that same period of time. So I started getting into more progressive music and prog metal more than like classic prog, like those bands I got into later. But Dream Theater came up for me around that age. And so their Systematic Chaos record, which I don't know how that stacks up for fans in their catalog, is probably not most people's favorite record.
Right.
But there's a couple of songs on there that I really associate with that period of time, and I really loved that record. And it was also pretty cutting edge because I think it came, like the CD maybe came with a DVD. I think that's how it worked.
Yeah.
This is like, YouTube is starting to become a thing around this period of time. So maybe it was YouTube, but that would have been really early for a band to be putting this kind of thing up there. I think it was a DVD. And it was of them recording in the studio. So you're seeing like them tracking all the parts and getting the gear together and all, stuff that's pretty commonplace to see now, but I had never really seen any of that from a band that wasn't like playing at a church or something like that, or like a little local band. Seeing a band in a studio, that was pretty amazing. That was one of the first times I saw that. So like Constant Motion on that record, Dark Eternal Night was a really, really good one too. And that whole record I thought was really good. And then the other prog band or prog metal band that I got into at that period that I still love a lot is Symphony X. And so that was more through my buddy Tyler.
I forgot
Symphony
all
X
about
has been
them.
around a long time.
Yeah, I forgot.
They got started in the mid 90s or something like that.
Yeah.
And they have made some really amazing music. And so around that period, I think 2006, they put out Paradise Lost, which is based around Milton, you know, epic poem, Paradise Lost.
Yep.
And so the whole thing was like this big concept record. So a lot like Mind Crime or something like that in a way, where all the songs tie into the central theme. But my God, Russell Allen, the singer of that band. I mean, the standout of the band, of course, is the music. And the guitar player is just unimaginably good at guitar and writing cool songs. But Russell Allen had a voice that, and still does, that just totally like, I'd never heard all those elements together in that way. Virtuosic playing, metal, fast tempos, but also really cool thematic lyrics that were based around something more than just like something that the artists themselves made up, but it was based on this more fundamental like cultural work, and then had amazing vocals. Because in my experience, a lot of metal bands that I would be into, most of the time you're making compromises with the bands that you loved, because it was kind of hard to find a band that maybe scratched the itch you were looking for musically and had a great singer. Fairly uncommon in that genre. You know, I think of a band like Slayer. You know, I love Slayer. I have nothing against Slayer. Their vocals to me, are a weak link in that band. A lot of people will want to crucify me for saying that because, and I get it. But for me, that wasn't what I was looking for.
Right.
We've talked about it many times. Dave Mustaine was an acquired taste for me of that era.
Same.
Clearly, Metallica had the best vocals. I think for your average person, and you can copy and paste that sentiment across most bands. There would be lots of bands who had cool songs, maybe a really great drummer, a really great guitar player, but maybe the singer wasn't great, listenable, but maybe it wasn't like your favorite thing. It seemed like it was kind of either you get an operatic style singer who was pulling more from like the Iron Maiden place, or you'd find a singer that was real gravelly and shouty. But finding someone who could sort of like conjure a big expressive range, a real powerhouse sort of singer. Like to me, Russell Allen hit all those marks in a band where like Dream Theater, the other band I mentioned, is one where like James LaBrie is a really great singer. He was an acquired taste for me. And he comes more from what I don't know if it's his reference point or not, but more the Iron Maiden school, more of that traditional operatic theater style singing type. And to me, that always didn't feel dangerous. That style of singing didn't feel dangerous enough for me to match the music. So I'm digressing a bit, but those are a couple of songs between that pretty funny, that dichotomy now thinking of it, but Coldplay, Clocks, and then, in that real early phase. And then, later as I'm getting my freedom, it's more progressive music, which I guess kind of aligns with that period of life, right? You're looking for things that seem a little unhinged and wild and that go lots of places because you're going lots of places because you got a driver's license and your buddies do, and you're taking road trips and you're driving down to Six Flags. I mean, maybe not at 16, but that era of your life, you're pushing boundaries and exploring more and becoming more of your own person. So I don't know, like, is Motley Crue and that sounds like that probably fits that similar time for you, but does that make you think of anything else during that, kind of getting your freedom phase?
I think, because I may have told that story, but I was always working. I think my mom has said this before about me. It's just like, I never really worried about you finding a job. Like, you've always been one to be like, I want to work because I want X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. Right. So I would pick up aluminum cans on the side of the road when I was probably 12, 13. Was doing landscaping work around that time, of course. So this is long before anyone really cared about child labor law and all that stuff,
Yeah.
So when I was able, I bought my first car. It was a Ford Escort. It was like $2,500. And that was a car that I had. I got it right when I was 16 and could drive, and immediately got a job delivering pizza. And so I'm in the car all the time delivering pizza. I'm still in school. Like, I would work at night and then go to school, like, crack of dawn. And I would go to work after school and go deliver pizza until 10, 11 o'clock at night, sometimes later on the weekends. In that entire time, I was either listening to the rock station, and they would always have like Get the Lead Out or, some sort of classic throwback, like a Pink Floyd hour, where you'd hear a bunch of Pink Floyd, or you would hear all the deep cuts from Led Zeppelin. So I got an education in Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin through that. Also, Billy Squier at that time, played a lot of Billy Squier. So that still kind of brings you back to those moments in the car. And then as I would make money and would start buying my own cassettes, I would have like it was almost like Crayola. Like, you'd have the 12 set cassette
Hmm.
thing that you'd put all your cassettes in, whatever you want to call it, little,
Like the changer or the book?
no, like a CD book is sort of the equivalent of this, but it would be like exactly that, except for cassette tapes. You'd have like
Yeah,
this whole
right.
little organizer, and you could have like the 12 or the 36 or 64,
Yeah,
like Crayola.
right,
I
right.
think at one point I probably got it up to like 64, and I would have, of course, albums that I bought, but then also have songs that I've recorded off the radio to listen to a lot. And there were moments in
Yeah,
this,
yeah,
there are moments here where, and again, I've talked about this a little bit, I think, on the earlier podcast, one of the first ones we did. There was this whole Columbia Records where you could buy music and whatever and through a TV guide, and they would send you stuff every month or whatever. It's like get 10 records for 3 cents. And then you're signed up for their subscription, of course, and they would send a record that they chose, and then you would choose, 3 or whatever a month. And
right.
so I was on that. I felt so guilty because they would keep sending stuff, and I would never pay for it. But I was like, cool. I wasn't really thinking about the money situation at that time. It
Yeah.
was just like, great.
You're like,
But
they'll
they would
figure
always
me out
have these
eventually, but for now I got music.
compilation records from this
Mm.
KTEL, I think, compilation. We talked a little bit about this before. It was like metal hits of the 80s or, whatever
Yeah,
it is. And I would discover a lot of things on there. And one I remember, Heaven and Hell, the Black Sabbath song with Dio. That was
yeah,
one that I was listening to at night. I remember for some reason or another, I had never heard that song before. It was on this compilation that had like Sammy Hagar and Rick Springfield and some other people on there, rock stuff that was kind of popular at that time. And they had this song sort of at the tail end. It was like I remember it being on the tail end of that cassette. And I was driving home, and my road home, we lived in the sticks, or in the cut, as you like to say out here. So I was driving home on this long highway to get to my house, and that song came on. It was pitch dark, like there's no street lights or anything, so it's just dark highway.
yeah,
And I was like, this again from the religious upbringing. I was like, oh, this feels real evil. You know?
yeah,
Um, so that one was a moment that I remember. I remember my mom had a Buick Century that used to have 8 tracks in it, and same kind of thing. She would have a lot of compilations or stuff there. I remember hearing the Eagles, um, "Witchy Woman" and "Lying Eyes." It was off the Greatest Hits album, and she had all the original records on vinyl. But in the car, she would have like a greatest hits of that. And I remember those songs being very impactful for me at that age. In fact, I remember sitting in the passenger seat, and if you know sort of Witchy Woman, it's got like this doom 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 doom. It's kind of like like this sort of tribal Indian sort of drum kind of thing to it. And I would be tapping that on the dashboard of the car. And so
yeah,
I knew early on, I'm like, I was going to be into music in many different ways, like as a percussionist or drummer or piano player, whatever it was. Um, that was definitely one period for me. Oh man, there's so many there's so many
yeah,
different ones that I can think of that have met stuff along the way. Um, but also always there was a really tough one for me, and again, I'll always bring it back to somehow or another. I'll always find a way to bring it back to Pearl Jam. There is a moment
gotta
where
help us.
calm down. Um, so there's a moment I'm living in Orlando. My Honda Prelude that I had bought off a friend of mine caught on fire while I was on a date. I was
Sick.
just having
That's a good
what I
omen.
felt like was the worst luck possible, and didn't have a car. I was having to go around and get to work on a bicycle. Um, my roommate at the time, I think he and I were estranged at that point in our life and kind of called it quits and moved out.
Mm.
Probably over a girl, I'm going to guess, if I'm not mistaken, not to drum that up. But regardless, it was a really dark point where I felt like I was just a big, giant loser. And I was, I don't know, probably 26, 27 years old. My mom had this old Buick. It might have been a Buick or a Cutlass. It was an Oldsmobile Cutlass Sierra. That's what it was. And she had gotten herself another car, so she had that car, and she's like, "Look, if you can get up here, you can drive it back. We'll get you all set up, put some new tires, get it all checked out, and you can take it back and have that car." And I remember taking a bus ride. I had to take a Greyhound bus. First time I ever done that. From Orlando to Cressy, Florida, it's about an 8.5 hour bus ride, if you will, with stops and everything. And that time I had a CD player and was just locked in, and an album from Pearl Jam had come out, I think was Yield. And I remember having a CD. I bought a CD player to put in the car. We had a CD player in it, and I was so excited to have my freedom back that I had the windows down. I'm driving I-10 going back from mom's house back to Orlando, and felt a whole sense of self-worth again that I hadn't felt in a while. And that record still to this day pulls me there.
Yeah. Oh, that's
It's
cool.
it was a very pivotal time for me where I was like, it's time to grow up. It's time to get your proverbial shit together. And that was a very impactful moment in my life where I was like, maybe the drug fueled recklessness that I had for a 3 or 4 year period there, where I was going to clubs and taking ecstasy or any number of dumb stuff that I would do at that time. It sort of caught up to me, and the party was over. And party was over in a way for me. It was like, I need to grab hold of my life and figure out what the next chapter is going to be. And that was sort of a huge wake up call for me, where I was like, I have to get it together. This isn't what I've been doing, wasn't getting it together. And it wasn't like any specific song on that record was doing it. It was the vibe of the whole thing and how it hit me in that moment. And there was moments where I just bawled like a child, crying all the way back. And there are moments when I have the windows down and was singing in a joyous moment. So I felt like I went through all 7 stages, or whatever, however many there are, different emotions on that car ride back home. But by the time I got back to Orlando, I knew that I was going to be something else and do something different. And I kind of credit that. It's crazy again. And I don't care if you or anybody really likes the band or not. It was um, it's not I mean, it's a great record. Let's just say that. But it has some very significant meaning for me, um, as a part where it's like a huge watershed moment in my life. And if I go back and listen to that, sometimes it's one that I had to put away because I didn't want to go back and relive sort of the reasoning that I had gotten to that point.
Yeah.
So it's a record that I love, but it's also sometimes a difficult record to listen to because it can pull me in there. Now, I've had enough time removed from it that I can go now and it's fine. But I think there were moments in my life where I had to put that record away, and it was almost like a sacred thing. Like, I don't want to get back in that headspace again. But I knew that it was there like a comforting friend. If I did need to, I could go back and kind of relive that if I needed it for inspiration. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but
Yeah.
um, that was definitely a one that probably a highlight for me, and definitely got me through a really tough moment, but also a moment that it was very impactful from where I am now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. I do. makes me think of a couple different like pivotal periods for me. Like one would be when I was like, I don't know, 20 probably. I'm working for my dad doing construction.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say doing construction, I wasn't constructing anything. I was supporting a team of other people who were constructing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it meant a lot of moving lumber around. And
I was to say, were you lumber boy? It's like the water boy. It's like lumber boy.
Yeah, it was a lot of
Yeah.
moving lumber. It's
Yeah.
like the lumber truck comes, drops everything off in the front. Now it needs to be put in all the different places where the guys can get it easily.
Yep.
And it was a lot of like cleaning up the job site and sweeping and all that kind of stuff. For the most part, I'm working with my dad, and I remember I'm like having that point where I'm realizing this is not what I want to be doing. But I didn't really have anything better to do yet. And at that point, I'd gotten a hold of Shinedown, The Sound of Madness. And that record had like a bunch of hit songs on it. Like a bunch of like almost every song on there was phenomenally good. That whole record bored its way into my head so deeply that it basically saved my life out there on the job, because I'm out there doing whatever I have to do.
Yeah.
But everything was so vivid to me that I didn't have to be listening to it to be listening to it. So I could play it along in my head and get the same feelings that I would get listening to it, just replaying it in my head from how I remembered the melodies going and all that.
Yeah.
And that ended up leading into a transition point where I ended up joining up with the band that I did for a few years full time, and took a stab at that, which led into some tours that we had done. We played by and large locally, but we went on a handful of tours over those years. And that was the most time that I had spent away from home. You know, I'm like in my early 20s.
Yeah.
And I remember listening a ton to Alter Bridge AB3. So I was a fan of their first two records, which were great. But that third one, when I listen to that, it really reminds me of like being out in the middle of nowhere, far away from home. I'm like with the guys in the band who are, you know, good friends and all of that. I'm not alone, but you know, it's a weird feeling sometimes not exactly knowing how you're getting back, or like what these places that we're supposed to play at are going to look like when we get there. You know, eating a lot of gas station food and not getting very good sleep because you're mostly traveling. And, you know, we were in an RV, which we were really fortunate to have, but it wasn't the most comfortable place to try to sleep.
Right.
And so, yeah, that record got me through a lot of, it was a backdrop to a lot of scenery that I had never experienced, and a lot of long nights, and a bunch of the guys in the band actually really got into that record. So it was also something to kind of bond over. And so when I listen to that, I think of that early 20s feeling of being lost and not really having anything to your name, taking some risk, but not being able to risk much because you don't have much to put in, you know, you don't have many chips to push into the center of the table.
Right.
And then, you know, there's a few other phases that kind of remind me of similar times in my life emotionally, like maybe the circumstances were different. But you know, that band eventually ends, and at the time I didn't want it to end, but other guys wanted it to end. It is what it is. In hindsight, I think it was what needed to have happen, but I wasn't ready to give up yet.
Right.
So that left me at another spot where I'm going, okay, well, I didn't go to college. And at this point I'm like 22, and bunch of people that I like went to high school with are graduating with degrees and getting jobs, and I'm going, I still don't know what I'm doing at all. And I was feeling way behind, and I ended up getting a job at a place where I met you,
Mhm. Mhm.
which had its way of working out in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember, kind of around that time getting into Queens of the Stone Age and the
Mm.
Like Clockwork, which I didn't know at the time, but that was a very different kind of record for them
Mhm.
and almost equally as reflective as perhaps my life kind of was at that point. And yeah, and then a whole slew of other stuff where like my musical taste changed a ton during that time because I had been so much of a metal and hard rock guy,
Yeah.
but then it was kind of like I really felt in my, at that point I'm like 22, 23. I'm like, there's a whole other world of music out there and I want to find some of it. And
Mhm.
so I get into a lot of other stuff like Ryan Adams was huge
Mhm.
for me in that sort of time period. Maybe
Mhm.
not literally at 22, but somewhere around there in that same phase of life.
Yeah.
His self-titled record was really impactful and kind of opened the door to a whole bunch of other stuff. Like
Mhm.
I, then kind of go backwards and I get really into Tom Petty from there.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to even pick a Tom Petty song, because I love so many of them. Refugee is up there, but I really think anything off their second record, you're gonna get it. That's a record
Mm.
I feel like no one talks about, and
No
that's
one
my favorite
ever
one.
talks about that record, which is
No
funny.
one no one talks about it, and I think it's phenomenal. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's so good. There's so many good songs on it, and,
Yeah.
everyone kind of picks up mostly at record 3, which is Damn the Torpedoes,
Yeah.
and understandably so because that is a masterpiece, but I like You're Gonna Get It better as a whole,
Yeah.
and I couldn't tell you why,
Yeah.
I just do, and
Yeah.
so I spent a lot of time listening to that in that period of my life,
Yeah.
and, then that leads into, um, of course, like, other changes in my life, then we get toward the back end of my 20s, and that's where, the heartbreak sets in and kind of leads into
Mhm.
me eventually getting with my wife, which is amazing.
Mhm.
But through there is a whole bunch of uh, basically like e- all the exploration that I did through my 20s brought me to a point where I eventually realized, like I said earlier, that I had a I felt like I maybe had a better grip on who I was actually when I was a teenager.
Mm.
But you're so insecure when you're a teenager, at least I was, that you don't realize that yet. And
Right.
it's like you have the best instincts as to who you are, but you're really rough around the edges and you haven't experienced enough of life. So how can you feel confident to know that this is really
Mm.
like kind of who you are? And so I went through most of my 20s battling with that and finding a lot of great stuff, but then eventually sort of having to go, you know what, I built up this life that's built up of a lot of like free trials of things in a way.
Mhm.
It's like, well, that's pretty cool. I like that. Maybe that's me, and let me try that out for a
Mm.
while.
Mhm.
And you do that with enough things, and eventually you end up um, with all this stuff that isn't really you, that you were just kind of trying out, but they're all kind of still stuck to you. The trials never ended. Now they're charging you,
Right.
and
Right.
here you
Right.
are going like, wait, I need to sort through this and figure out which stuff is really me and which stuff was just like maybe for a time.
Yeah.
And so all of that coincided with the end of one relationship and, then the beginning of another one. This is all around the time that we put out our first record.
Mhm.
Um, and so there's a whole lot of like personal change for me of trying to come to grips with who I really wanted to be long term, like what was the most genuine version of me. And that led to a whole bunch of change where oddly a lot of my tastes kind of reverted back to sort of what they were when I was growing up.
Mhm.
Um, but just a more broadened sort of version of that. And that's where a lot of other really cool bands have sort of found their way in, that fill in little cracks in the whole thing. Like the War on Drugs is a band that kind of comes from that Springsteen, Petty, Dylan world, but mixed with all these other colors that remind me in a way of like what this is a weird comparison perhaps, but like when I hear Clocks for the first time, it gives me a similar feeling to like the Deeper Understanding record, where there's a palette of sound that they're playing with that is just so immersive. It almost feels like textural, or like it's like a watercolor version of sound almost, and it it feels more tangible than some other things that I maybe would be used to listening to that can sound a little sterile by comparison. You know, I get into Ghost around that period, and that's a really fun, cool sort of take on things that I grew up with, but with the sense of humor now. You know, it's like growing up, everything was really serious, but now being able to come back at it with a more mature set of ears and eyes and heart,
Right.
and be able to like realize that it's not all so serious.
Right.
And you can have a lot of fun with it, which helps me understand other bands like Van Halen more, who, you know, I'm ashamed to say that earlier on, like in high school, I didn't have the context to understand just how important Van Halen was. And at that point, like I thought Van Halen was cool, don't get me wrong, but I didn't get the hype that everyone was talking about, because I'm going, at this point, there's guitar players who can do, like, to me, it was more of an athletic thing. So it was like the best guitar player is the guitar player who can play more things. Right. So it'd be like the guy who could play this style, that style, and another style, who could play the fastest licks, who could play alternate picking and sweet picking and legato and tapping and whatever. Which I realize in hindsight is a really immature way to think about those things, but especially when you're a teenager, everything is competitive. And so I would have arguments with people. Like I remember a teacher of mine arguing that Van Halen was like the greatest of all time. And I'm like, dude, no, he's definitely not. Like there are so many guitar players now who can play things that Van Halen could never play, which is probably true, but also misses the point, because none of those other guys exist if Eddie doesn't exist.
Exactly.
And so that whole fun element helps me get back into some of those other things and really appreciate the joy of Van Halen's music, which I've talked about many times.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm probably going a little long-winded here, but those are all things that kind of stemmed off of thinking of similar areas of my life that felt really pivotal, that were accompanied by certain directions musically, things that sort of like supported me through those times. And then how my taste kind of evolved and changed too, as like my maturity grew.
Yeah.
You're able to look at things differently and maybe understand stuff that you couldn't before. I think that's really special too.
Yeah.
And I hope to have more of that, you know. Maybe one day that'll lead me to Pearl Jam. I really doubt it, but maybe.
I do too. But that's a whole other, maybe we'll just do a whole podcast on a band that we just don't like, that the other person enjoys.
Yeah, let's do a debate. You take the pro Pearl Jam side and I'll take the con, and we'll just have like a moderated debate.
Yes. I think I'm going to figure out a way.
That's a good idea you just had, though. I know you kind of glossed over it, but we should do that. That would be fun. We could do a whole podcast where we bash bands that each other likes that we don't like. And then we just try to.
I was thinking about this. Like, we talked about doing this before, and maybe we will do it for next round. Is like, you give me a record to listen to. I do think this would be kind of fun. You give me a record to listen to that maybe I haven't heard, that you go, I want you to listen to this record. It's something that I find impactful to me that I've really enjoyed. And I want you to fully dissect it, live with it for a week, listen to it front to back. And I give you one and you do the same thing. And then we come back and we'll talk about it. And you
Yeah.
could still have that same opinion to go, yeah, I can respect or appreciate it, but it's not for me. Or, you know what?
Mm.
No, this is really good. And um, I'm glad that you shared it with me. Right. It could be
Yeah.
anything. It could be like, absolutely not, Kevin, this record sucks, Um, but to maybe bow tie the whole topic of today,
Yeah.
there's movies and film are very much impactful to me. Um, and they've always they've always punctuated rather different points in my life. I think finding and discovering music that I had no idea um, who it was, where it came from sometimes seeing them or hearing it in a movie and realizing,
Yeah.
oh wow,
That's a good point.
this is a really special thing. There was I'll say there's a movie, of course, Apocalypse Now, the Francis Ford Coppola film. One of my favorite movies because I love the source material was Joseph Conrad, Hearts of Darkness, I think it was, that I read when we were in high school. Really good book. The movie's kind of an adaptation of that. I
Yeah.
hear the soundtrack in that movie, by the way, is phenomenal, like Vangelis and Blade Runner and those kind of things. But I hear the Doors, This Is the End, or the end rather, in that movie. Never heard that. It just blew my head off. I'm like, this is and in the scene in that is what punctuated it so much. You're like, oh wow, this is a really very impactful an important moment. There was I was in New Orleans. It was rainy. A friend of mine and I decided to go on a road trip and go there for the day or for the couple of days. We get there, it's pouring down rain. We don't feel like going to doing your debaucherous drinking on Bourbon Street just quite yet. And there was an indie theater that was there that was showing a movie called Basquiat, which based on Jean-Michel Basquiat's life and his art and things. If you've never seen that, it was a great indie film. It's got so many good people in it. And there's a song in this in the beginning of this movie, I think in the opening credits, that was so cool. And it was from John Lydon's other band, not the Sex Pistols, but Public Image or PIL, Public Image Limited. And the song's called Public Image. One of the first songs that they put out, I believe, is like 1979, I think was the song. I'd never heard them. And to be honest with you, I think, hand on my heart, I probably hadn't heard the Sex Pistols at that time. This is probably 90, I don't know, 95, 96, somewhere in there. And so hearing that song and discovering, I went down a huge rabbit hole because I was so blown away with the song. It's such a cool, punky, post-punk type song that that one unlocked a whole genre of music for me. Because in that moment, I was like, oh my God, this song's so cool. Why haven't I listened to more music like that? And then I'm like, wait, this is his second band? Oh, holy crap. He was a singer, Johnny Rotten.
Yeah.
He was a singer for the Sex Pistols. Cool. I'm going to go absorb all of that. And then
Right.
from that, it becomes Ramones and then the Stooges. And then I fall in love with
Yeah.
Iggy Pop because I'm like, holy crap, how have I missed this? And then I find Joy Division because I had only known about New Order and had heard them in the 80s and all that and knew about New Order, but didn't know about Joy Division. And Joy Division became New Order after Ian Curtis commits suicide, I believe it was. So that band became that band. So anyway, literally one song, Public Image, took me and allowed me to discover an entire genre of music that I had never really listened to. And for years
so cool?
during that time, I became fully immersed in that space. I've talked about that story of a friend when I first went to school. giving me the Nothing Shocking and Pretty Hate Machine. So Jane's Addiction on one side of the tape, Pretty Hate Machine on the other. And
That's
again,
crazy.
2 records are going to blow your head off. The
Yeah.
very first time you ever hear those 2 bands, and they're nothing like each other, but holy crap, what a tape that was. And that obviously has carried me till now. I still love those bands very much. And still very much a fan of both of those. So anyway, we could go on for days about that, but I think the point of it is there's so many key moments in your life where music, at least for you and I as musicians and artists,
Yeah.
where music has scored pivotal moments in our journey, reflective moments, moments of being younger, key moments in your life, your love life, your career, when you find a course where you want to change who you are, a song that opens up an entire portal of other music that you didn't know about, which also creates a different identity or a part of an identity for you later. It's very special, I think. And maybe it's just me in a moment of reflectiveness as you get older, but it's just fun to kind of go back and share that with somebody and know, like, probably everyone has these sort of moments if they're invested in music in that way. If they really go back, I bet they can think about things like that. And it's a very special thing. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
painful, sometimes it's beautiful, sometimes it's all of the above. Um, but I just wanted to see kind of what your thoughts were about all that. And I'm sure, like I said, we'll think of 100 more, but this will be good for anybody who's listening to this. Share the songs that have made an impact to you all, and
Yeah.
um, things that, moments, and maybe some of the ones we mentioned also did something for you too. Um,
Well, and
you
it's
know,
a fun conversation too, because I feel like based on the day, you'd have a completely different set of things that come to
yes.
mind.
Yeah.
Especially for those who are like us who listen to a lot of music and
Yeah.
across a lot of styles. I mean, as it looks like we're about to wrap up. Do you have you want to do like a lightning round of honorable mentions or other things
Mm,
that we don't have to go in depth on that you just want to shout out
totally.
specific records or songs?
Yep. I'll kick it off right now. Probably every Friday now for probably the last 3 or 4 years, for whatever reason, I treat Friday, even though I might have to work on Saturday, I still treat Friday as a weekend, like a person traditionally getting off work and having the weekend off. And Limp Bizkit's Break Stuff is always getting played. Probably, I think it ended up showing up as like one of my top 5 on my replay list for last year. That one is definitely on there for sure. I don't know. We'll ping pong back. What's one for you? I'll think of another one, I'm sure.
My Chemical Romance, Black Parade.
Black Parade, yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
I won't give it context, but that was a big one for me.
The Cure, probably all of the record of Disintegration, but a few songs on there um are really, really impactful for me for different moments in my life too. And I still go back to that record. In fact, I think yep, it's right back there somewhere,
Mm,
right there.
yeah.
Also right below that, Sonic Youth. There was this really cool person that I met when I was in Orlando she was playing for a punk band called Obliterati. And I just was enamored with her and the band. And I said, how do you write music like this? It's so weird. It was so weird to me, but so cool and different. And she's like, you ever heard Sonic Youth? And I was like, I'd seen, obviously, like everybody, seen people with t-shirts on. And I'm like, no, I haven't. And she said, you got to go check out this record. And she turned me on to Daydream Nation. And I was forever changed. Again, very much love that band. So that's another one. Honorable mention for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely one there.
I've got them stacking up in my brain now.
Cool.
I'll give a really weird assortment here. Metallica, Ride the Lightning.
Yep.
Children of
Good.
Bodom, Are You Dead Yet?
Oh, wow.
That's a great one. I'm gonna go Gary Clark Jr. Black and Blue.
Yeah, that's a great record.
Amazing record that I listen to a lot. John Mayer Continuum. Everyone knows that record, but if you don't,
Yeah.
go listen to it. Stop living under a rock. I wore that one out as well.
Yeah.
Mastodon, Crack the Sky, one of my all-time favorites. That one is
Great tune.
unbelievably
Great
good.
record.
Anything else for you?
Yes.
I'll probably think of more as you're talking. Oh,
Underworld. Second toughest in the infants. Anyone who ever saw the movie Trainspotting will 100% know that Underworld had an impact on them in that movie. In fact, that entire soundtrack is probably one of the best movie soundtracks out there, in my opinion. But that turned me on to that band and all of the music that they've done since then. One of the best electronic bands out there, bar none. Incredible. Future Nostalgia during the pandemic.
Oh, that's such a good
That record
call. Yeah, I've
just
listened
was
to that a lot.
everything. Was my
I still
everything.
listen to it.
Me too.
I have that one on
Me
vinyl
too.
actually.
Yeah, same. Love that record so much. During my club days, because I'm kind of taking it back a little bit of electronic stuff. D-Light. I know everyone knows Groove is in the Heart, but they had 3 or 4 records that were just remarkable that also are very impactful for me in a different part of my life that isn't just about rock music and so forth, but again, my deep love of DJing and electronic music and things like that. That really opened up a door for me during that time as well. Metal record, of course. Honestly, I know as many people probably don't put this up there for me, but this, in truth, Master Puppets and Justice for All definitely were very pivotal records for me, for Metallica in that point. I live with those two. Of course, I know all their other prior and a handful after.
Yeah.
But those 2 records I still go back to quite a bit. Seasons in the Abyss, the Slayer record, although I would disagree because I do like Tom's vocal. Just for the style of music that they do. But that record was also one that was important for me at the time. Seventh Son, Iron Maiden, another record that I don't talk about. I haven't talked a lot about my love of Iron Maiden, but they were one that was very important for me in my high school days, I would say. Those are a few, and I'm sure there's 100 bazillion more. Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, one of my favorite bands out there. Discovered them when I moved to LA in 2002. And have seen them probably more than I've seen probably most bands, at least 30 or 40 times somewhere in that neighborhood, and continue to love everything that they've done. And they kind of still fly so far under the radar that a lot of people don't know them, but have heard their songs and other things like movies, TV shows, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's a handful. Enough to get a wet the whistle for people out there that made it all the way to the end. I'm sure some of those will resonate with you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Only a couple more popped up for me, and I think that's just for lack of brain cells today. The first 1975 record is amazing.
Yeah.
And they get a lot of hate too, and I don't quite understand that. But maybe we can discuss that another time.
That's true.
They are pretentious, but a lot of bands are. So, I mean that's no reason to not like a band.
True.
And then I would say any of the early records from the Midnight were really impactful for me. And I thought those were super cool, really different. Like that's that whole synthwave kind of deal.
Yeah. They're great.
Which, I can definitely get down with some nostalgia. Yeah.
Those are good.
Yeah.
Anyway. Planet Telex, the song from Radiohead on the album The Bends. When I first heard the guitar, and you have to go and listen to this, you'll know, but it came off of the reason that I own a Space Echo pedal. The only reason that I own that is because I found out that was how they made that sound. It has this very like like it's really staccato delay in the guitar. in the opening riff of that song, and certainly at the very end when it goes off the rail. But that sound, I was obsessed with trying to figure out how they made that on the guitar, and then I went down a rabbit hole with Radiohead that I've never returned from. So that's
never made it back. Yeah.
Never made it back. Just been fully invested in them forever. But yeah, so thanks for listening, everybody.
There. I mean, I have to. It's the obvious one, but I have to say Super Unknown as well. I can't go out on the midnight. But
No.
as much as that band does deserve to be in that list. Yeah.
That's
well,
a great record, though.
Yeah, I could just keep going. My head is spinning, so I think we probably should call it
just
there.
Cut it. We'll do another part 2 of this down the road.
Yeah. We'll come back around to this topic at some point, because I feel like I said before, it'd probably be a totally different conversation depending on the day.
Oh yeah.
Sure. All that said, as always, want to say thank you. If you made it this far, we appreciate you listening.
Mm-hmm.
Our streams are going up and up every week, which is exciting. So we're going to keep doing it. You can get in touch with us in a variety of different places. So we have a website. If you're on YouTube, you should see all of our links in the description. But if you're listening somewhere else, thesonicalchemy.com. We are at The Sonic Alchemy and social media. So we're on Instagram now, YouTube, and we have an X profile, which doesn't get used a ton, but you can reach out to us there. And then, of course, our band is the Silver Echo. So if you're interested in hearing any of the music that we make, you can find us at the Silver Echo everywhere. Lots more music coming out this year. We put out a record last year, depending on when you're listening to this. So, we appreciate the listeners. We appreciate the comments and the feedback and the thoughts. And we will be back again next week.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. Stay safe out there wherever you are, and support some local music when you can. Till the next one.
Later.